Hello everyone! Welcome back to our lesson in pag-aaral ng kasaysayan at lipunang Pilipino. For today's lesson, pag-uusapan natin ang isang topic na I'm sure marami sa atin ay may personal na experience. Paniniwala at pananampalataya. At kapag sinabi nating paniniwala, hindi lang ito tungkol sa religion. Kasama rito ang mga bagay na naririnig natin sa pamilya, mga nakasanayan natin, mga pamahiin, mga kwento ng ating mga lolo at lola, at maging mga bagay na hindi natin nakikita pero pinaniniwalaan nating may epekto sa buhay natin. For example, may naniniwala ba sa usog, sa pasma, sa anting-anting, sa agimat? Sa mga bagay na hindi natin maipaliwanag pero sinasabi nating baka may something. So in this lesson, hindi natin pag-uusapan kung alin ang totoo at alin ang hindi totoo. Mas historical at cultural ang ating approach. Ang tanong natin ay, ano ang sinasabi ng mga paniniwalang ito tungkol sa kung paano inuunawa ng mga Pilipino ang buhay, kalusugan, kalikasan, kapwa, at mundo ng mga espiritu? At dito natin makikilala ang isang napakahalagang konsepto, ang ginhawa. Before we begin, let's look at our learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, we should be able to understand the relationship between paniniwala, pananampalataya, at kalinangang Pilipino within our historical and social context. At higit sa lahat, we should be able to appreciate traditional knowledge as part of our national identity and history. So habang nakikinig kayo sa lesson na ito, I want you to do something. Huwag lang ninyong isipin ano ang definition nito. Instead, ask yourself, bakit kaya ito pinaniniwalaan ng mga tao? At ano ang ipinapakita nito tungkol sa ating kultura? No? Because that's how we study culture. Hindi lamang natin inaalam kung ano ang ginawa or ginagawa ng mga tao, sinusubukan din nating intindihin kung bakit nila ito ginagawa. Okay, let's start with something personal. Naniniwala ka ba sa agimat, anting-anting o pamahiin? Or maybe a better question, may paniniwala or pamahiin ba kayong sinusunod sa bahay? Okay, think about it. Baka may sinabi sa inyo ang inyong nanay na huwag kang matulog ng basa ang buhok or huwag kang magwawalis sa gabi or maybe bawal muna lumabas ang bagong panganak kung nanganak ka na, charot, or may nanganak sa inyo. Or perhaps may mas specific pa sa inyong pamilya, no? Maybe you follow it, maybe you don't even know why you do it. And that's actually what makes culture interesting. Sometimes we inherit practices before we inherit the explanation behind them. Kaya tandaan ninyo ang sagot ninyo sa tanong na ito, no? Babalikan natin yan sa dulo ng lesson, yung inyong sagot. Okay. So now let's begin with one important idea. Ang nakikita at hindi nakikita. Sa tradisyonal na pananaw, hindi laging magkahiwalay ang katawan, kalikasan, komunidad at espiritu. I think about that for a moment. Sa modern life, sanay tayo na parang magkakahiwalay ang mga bagay. Kapag may sakit, katawan ang iniisip natin. Kapag may problema sa environment, environmental issue. Kapag may problema sa relasyon, social issue. Kapag religious, spiritual issue. But in many traditional Filipino worldviews, these things can be deeply interconnected. Ang katawan ay may relasyon sa espiritu. Ang tao ay may relasyon sa komunidad. At ang komunidad ay may relasyon sa kalikasan. So the worldview is not necessarily ako ay isang individual na hiwalay sa mundo. Instead, ako ay bahagi ng isang mas malaking network ng mga ugnayan. And that idea will become very important, no, as we discuss ginhawa. Okay. Now let's organize that worldview into three dimensions: buhay, kamatayan, at pagpapagaling. No? Notice the arrows. Hindi sila random na listahan, may relationship sila. Kapag pinag-uusapan natin ang buhay, kasama rito ang paraan ng pag-unawa ng tao sa kanyang sarili at mundo. Kapag pinag-uusapan natin ang kamatayan, pumapasok ang tanong tungkol sa espiritu, sa mga ninuno, at sa hindi nakikitang mundo. At kapag pinag-uusapan naman natin ang pagpapagaling, makikita natin kung paano sinusubukan ng tao na ibalik ang balanse o ginhawa. So, throughout this lesson, isipin ninyo ang tatlong ito. Paano nabubuhay? Paano inuunawa ang kamatayan? At paano ibinabalik ang ginhawa? Now, let's zoom in on the first dimension, no? Buhay. At ang starting point natin ay ang tao. Buhay, tao. Sa slide, makikita natin ang katawan, diwa, kaluluwa, ginhawa, at kapwa. Ang interesting dito ay hindi natin sila tinitingnan bilang magkakahiwalay na parts. They are interconnected. So, hindi lang may katawan ako, mayroon ding diwa, may kaluluwa, may ginhawa, at may kapwa. And then look at the bottom. Kalikasan, pamayanan, spiritual na daigdig. So, ang tao ay nasa gitna ng isang malaking web of relationships. This is very different from thinking of a person as completely independent. According to the perspective that we just presented, sa pre-colonial worldview, ang tao ay binubuo ng magkakaugnay at hindi mapaghihiwalay na katawan, diwa, kaluluwa, ginhawa, at kapwa. And this gives us a very important idea. Hindi hiwalay ang material at espiritual. Hindi rin hiwalay ang individual at komunidad. At hindi rin hiwalay ang tao at kalikasan. Imagine it this way. Kapag may isang bahagi na naapektuhan, posible na may epekto rin ito sa ibang bahagi. For example, kapag may problema ka sa relationship with your family, maaaring maapektuhan ang emotional well-being mo. Kapag unhealthy ang environment, maaaring maapektuhan ng katawan at pamumuhay ng community. No? So the idea is well-being is relational. And that brings us to our next concept. Ginhawa. And so this for me is one of the most important slides in our lesson. Ginhawa. What does ginhawa mean? Usually kapag sinasabi natin ginhawa, iniisip natin comfort, ease, relief. For example, sa wakas, nakahinga rin ako ng maluwag. That's ginhawa. Pero sa cultural context that we are studying, mas malalim ang konsepto nito. It involves kagalingan, balanse, pakikipag-ugnayan. So look at the diagram. And sarili, then kapwa, then kalikasan, then daigdig na espiritual. Now this tells us that ginhawa is not simply okay ako, ba? It can also mean okay ang relasyon ko sa kapwa, okay ang ugnayan ko sa kalikasan, and within the traditional worldview, okay ang ugnayan ko sa spiritual world. So ginhawa is not simply a personal feeling. It is a condition of balance within relationships. Now this brings us to the idea of relational ginhawa that I already talked about earlier. According to Zeus A. Salazar, as presented in the slide, ginhawa has an inherently relational character. In simple terms, hindi mo kailangang maranasan ang ginhawa ng mag-isa. It is developed through relationships, with family, with community, with ancestors, and even with the unseen world. So let's make this very practical. Imagine that you have everything you want. May pera ka, may magandang trabaho, may bahay, may gadgets, everything looks good. Pero wala kang magandang relationship with your family. Wala kang connection sa community, and you constantly feel disconnected from the people around you, can we still say that you are experiencing complete ginhawa? Well, according to this worldview, perhaps not, no? Because well-being is not only about what you possess, it is also about how you are connected. Diba? Sabi nga natin, hindi hiwalay yung mga yan, no? Interconnected. Now, let's look at two familiar examples, no? Usog and pasma. Most of us have probably heard these words before, and in fact, many of us have personal or family experiences related to them. Now, let's start with usog. Sa tradisyonal na paliwanag, ang usog ay nangyayari kapag ang isang tao, madalas isang baby, ay naapektuhan ng isang taong bumati, tumingin o lumapit sa kanya na may tinatawag na mabigat o malakas na enerhiya. Karaniwang sintomas na sinasabi ay biglang pag-iyak, pagkabalisa o pakiramdam na parang may nangyari sa katawan ng bata kahit wala namang pisikal na dahilan. No? Sa ganitong pananaw, ang usog ay hindi lang tungkol sa mikrobyo or physical contact, kundi tungkol sa pakikipag-ugnayan ng enerhiya o presensya ng tao sa tao. Ibig sabihin, ang katawan ay hindi hiwalay sa social interaction. Apektado ito ng relasyon at interaksyon sa ibang tao. Kaya rin sa maraming pamilya, may mga ritual para sa usog tulad ng paghaplos. Madalas kapag sa matatanda, di ba, sumasakit yung tiyan. Ako, nausog ako once, bata ako. Tapos, ayun, nahaplos yung ng pamahid, yung tiyan. Pagdila ng matanda sa bata, sa tiyan usually kung sumasakit yung tiyan. O pagbigkas ng orasyon, binubulungan. No? Binubulungan yung forehead or binubulungan yung tiyan. Ganyan. Ang ginhawa nito ay hindi lang treatment, no? Kung hindi pagbabalik ng balanse sa ugnayan ng tao at kapwa. Ngayon naman, pasma. Ang pasma ay karaniwang iniuugnay sa biglaang pagbabago ng kondisyon ng katawan. Halimbawa, galing sa mabigat na trabaho, naglaro ka ng basketball, matagal, ganyan. Pagbubuhat or paglalaba, tapos bigla kang nalantad sa lamig or huminto sa aktibidad. Yan. Ang sinasabing epekto nito ay panginginig ng kamay, pananakit ng kasukasuan, paninigas ng katawan, o pakiramdam na hindi bumalik or bumabalik sa normal ang katawan. Diba? Yung mami ko, ayan, naniniwala siya sa pasma. Kapag halimbawa nagpa-plancha ako ng uniform, bawal ako magbasa agad ng kamay, no? O kaya nagluto ako, bawal agad ako magbasa ng kamay. So pag nagluto ako, hindi ako yung maghugas ng pinggan, no? Yung hindi nagluto kasi mapapasma daw ako. Or kapag halimbawa galing ako sa trabaho, tapos gusto ko maligo bago matulog, bawal muna ako maligo, kailangan pahinga ko daw muna ng mga 1 oras ganyan bago ako maligo kasi baka mapasma daw ako. Yan. So, sa tradisyonal na pagtingin, ang pasma ay hindi lang simpleng muscle strain. Ito ay nakikita bilang pagkawala ng balanse sa loob ng katawan dahil sa hindi tamang transition ng init, lamig, pagod at pahinga. Walang English translation ang usog at pasma, no? Ano yan? Indigenous siya na konsepto, no, sa mga Pilipino. No, kaya mahalaga ang konsepto, no, ang tamang timing at tamang pag-aalaga sa katawan. Halimbawa, kaya may payo na yun nga, wag agad maligo pagkatapos magbuhat o magtrabaho ng mabigat dahil sa paniniwalang maaring maistorbo ang natural na daloy ng init at lamig sa katawan. Yun. Now, important clarification. As students of history and culture, our purpose here is not to tell you, yes, scientifically proven ito, or no, nonsense lang ito. Our purpose is to understand why did people believe this? What worldview made these explanations meaningful? And what does this tell us about the Filipino understanding of the body, health, and relationships? Now, that's the historian's question. And now let's move outside the individual. Tao at kalikasan. The slide gives us a very interesting statement. Ang ganda ng slide. Hindi lamang lugar ang kalikasan. No? Think about that. Usually kapag sinabi nating forest, mountain, river, or sea, we think of geography, na physical location, resource, environment. But in traditional worldview, nature can also be understood as a space of espiritu, no? Of a space of alaala, a space of ugnayan. No? Meaning, the environment may carry stories, memories, identities, and spiritual meanings. And, a mountain is not simply a mountain. A river is not simply water flowing from one place to another. A forest may not simply be a collection of trees. For a community, these places can carry memory and meaning. And that is why understanding culture also requires understanding place. Kaya nga, di ba, nagtatabi-tabi po tayo. Kasi naniniwala tayo na may mga hindi tayo nakikita, no, ng mga entity sa paligid at ayaw nating madisrespeto sila. So, tinitignan natin yung sarili natin na may magandang relasyon, no, sa kalikasan sa ating paligid. Yan. And now we move into a topic that is probably more familiar to many of us. No? Agimat, anting-anting, at mutya. Yan. In the traditional worldview, these objects may be understood as having spiritual power that contributes to maintaining ginhawa. But notice something important. They are not simply accessories. Okay, ulitin ko yun ha. They are not simply accessories. They are not just decorations. No? They can function as bridges between the person and the spiritual world, ancestors, and deities. In other words, the object itself becomes meaningful because of the belief system surrounding it. And that is an important lesson in studying material culture. No? Objects can tell stories. So, yung sa pag-aaral natin ng kasaysayan, no, hindi lang, sabi natin last lesson, hindi lang written documents yung source natin ng kasaysayan. Hindi lang nakasulat ang kasaysayan. Pwede itong pine-perform, pwedeng kinakanta katulad ng mga binukot, no, ng mga panay bukid nun. Kung naalala niyo yung last lesson natin. Pero yung objects, no, they can also tell stories. So, let's begin with the mutya. The mutya is often described as a natural object. It may be a bato, perlas, or piraso ng kahoy. Yan. But according to the belief system, these objects may be believed to possess a special, almost conscious power. Yan. So imagine finding an unusual stone. For most people, it may just be a stone. But within a particular cultural worldview, that same stone can become something much more. It can become a mutya. The difference is not necessarily the physical object itself. The difference is the meaning given to that object. And that is what makes culture powerful. Now, let's compare that with the anting-anting. Unlike the mutya, the anting-anting is often something created or made by people. It may contain inscriptions, mga ukit, no, symbols, or other markings. And this is where things become historically interesting. Because the anting-anting can contain a mixture of katutubong spiritual beliefs, no, and religious symbols introduced by outsiders. Kaya mapapansin ninyo, minsan yung mga anting-anting, meron silang may mga Latin words, ganyan. Kung hindi Latin words, may mga Christian symbols, like Alpha and Omega, for example, no? Cross, yan, makikita natin. May mga yan, symbols, no, na hindi siya indigenous or katutubo. Diba? Galing siya sa labas, inimpluwensya sa atin. Yan. So, the anting-anting can actually show us how culture changes. The culture is not always pure or untouched. Sometimes different traditions meet. Diba? Kasi may interaction yung mga tao. They interact, no? They adapted, and eventually, something new emerges. And that is one of the reasons why cultural history is so fascinating. I love cultural history. But the story of the Anting-Anting does not stop with personal protection. It also enters Philippine history. During the Spanish period, particularly in the context of resistance, the use of anting-anting among the Katipuneros. And I'm actually reading a book. Ang title ay Pasyon at Revolusyon ni Reynaldo Ileto at ayan, dinidiscuss niya dun sa book kung paano yung Katipunan no, ginamit yung anting-anting. Yung Christian beliefs no, sa revolusyon. So, this gives the object another meaning. It becomes a symbol of resistance. No? Think about that. The same object that may have been associated with spiritual protection can also represent faith, courage, no? And resistance to colonial oppression. So objects can carry historical meanings beyond their physical form. And this is why we cannot understand an object simply by looking at it. We also need to understand the historical context surrounding it. Now, I want you to take a moment to look closely at this image. Instead of immediately asking, ano ito? I want you to ask, ano ang ibig sabihin nito sa taong gumagamit o naniniwala rito? Look at the symbols. Look at the material. Look at how it is presented, no? And think about the idea of power. Where does the power come from? From the object, from the person, from the ritual, from the belief, or perhaps from the relationship among all of this? That question will lead us directly to our next topic, which is rituals. And so, because according to the traditional worldview discussed no, in our lesson, the power of sacred objects does not exist in isolation. It is connected to ritual, and this may include panalangin, orasyon, paghahandog, and paglilinis or cleansing. No? The purpose is to connect the person with spiritual forces and to maintain ginhawa. No? So remember our earlier discussion, ginhawa is about balance, and rituals can be understood as practices intended to restore or maintain that balance. In other words, belief gives meaning to the ritual, while the ritual gives expression to the belief. Now, one particularly interesting example is the orasyon. Okay? Why? Because it shows us that traditions can change. The orasyon reflects how Filipino spiritual practices adapted through time by combining elements of indigenous traditions with Christian elements. And that gives us an important lesson. Culture is not static. Hindi ibig sabihin na kapag traditional, exactly the same na ito from hundreds of years ago. Ba? Traditions can be borrowed, adapted, reinterpreted, and sometimes completely transformed. So when we say that a cultural practice is traditional, quote unquote, it does not automatically mean that it has never changed. In fact, its ability to adapt may be precisely why it survived. Now let's connect this to something very familiar, no? Health. This lesson presents the traditional Filipino understanding of health as something that can be viewed as an early form of a holistic perspective, no? Or holistikong pagtingin. Meaning, health is not limited to the body. It involves the relationship among mind, body, and spirit. And if we connect this to our earlier discussion of ginhawa, we can see the bigger picture. The goal is not simply walang sakit ang katawan ko. Oh, that's not simply the goal. The goal can also involve balance, harmony, and well-being. But again, we are looking at this historically and culturally. We are examining how people understood health and healing within their worldview. Okay. So, some examples include pagpapatawas. Ayan, kung na-experience yun na siya, kung na-experience ko yun bata ako. So, pinapatawas, iba-iba yung methods nila ng pagtatawas. Iba gumagamit ng tubig kandila, katulad na nakita nyo sa picture. Yung iba may binaburn na parang element na parang bato na color yellow. Ganyan. Yung iba gumagamit ng kandila at plato. Yung iba gumagamit ng papel na may mga orasyon. Yan. Aside from pagpapatawas, paggamit ng halamang gamot, ng mga medicinal plants, paligong herbal, yung pagsusuob, for example, tama ba? Suob. Yan, yung pagsusuob, yung ini-steam ka, di ba? At pagdarasal para sa mga may sakit. These practices continue to exist in different forms, and interestingly, some people may use traditional practices while also seeking modern medical treatment. So rather than automatical thinking, tradition versus modern, ba, we can ask, how do people combine different systems of knowledge in their everyday lives? Because this is also part of cultural change. People negotiate between what they inherited from the past and what they encounter in the present. If you will read, if you will read my memoir, diba, about my cancer journey, I also talked about um I, I also talked about my experience going to a faith healer. Ayan, to treat cancer, diba? At sure ako hindi lang ako yung gumawa nun. Marami. So this brings us to the modern Filipino albularyo. The example presented here shows a combination of traditional practices such as halamang gamot, tawas, at orasyon. Ganun yung ginawa sa akin. With more contemporary practices and ideas, including things encountered through modern media and the internet. May online tawas na, no? May online albularyo na din. Whether we agree with every practice or not, the cultural point is interesting. Traditions adapt. A tradition that survives for a long time does not necessarily remain unchanged. Instead, it may absorb new ideas. It may respond to new technology. It may change its language. It may change its practices. And yet, it may still retain elements of its original cultural identity. So again, culture is alive. At hindi siya static. So bago tayo magtapos, let's go back to our 3 big questions. Ayan. Ano ang ginhawa? If you remember only one concept from today's lesson, I hope it is this. Ginhawa is not simply comfort. It is connected to kagalingan, balance, and relationships. Second, paano ipinapakita ng paniniwala ang ugnayan ng tao, kapwa, kalikasan at espiritu? Our discussion showed us that traditional beliefs often do not separate these dimensions. Interconnected sila, no? Relational. And third, bakit mahalagang pag-aralan ang mga tradisyong ito? Because these traditions tell us something about who we are. They tell us how previous generations understood life, health, nature, community, spirituality, and even death. They are part of our historical memory. They are part of our cultural identity. And they continue to change as they are passed from one generation to another. And that brings us to the end of our lesson. But before I let you go, charot. Let's return to the very first question. Diba? Naniniwala ka ba sa agimat anting-anting o pamahiin? No, maybe your answer is still yes. Maybe it's no. Or maybe you're now somewhere in between. And that's okay. Because the goal of studying culture is not always to convince us to believe. Sometimes the goal is simply to help us understand, why people believe, why traditions survive, why practices change, and why certain beliefs remain meaningful even after hundreds of years. So the next time you encounter a Filipino belief that seems strange, unusual, or even impossible to you, maybe don't immediately ask, totoo ba yan? Ano? Try asking, ano ang kwento sa likod nito? Ano ang kahulugan nito sa mga taong naniniwala rito? And perhaps most importantly, ano ang sinasabi nito tungkol sa ating kultura? So, maraming maraming salamat sa pakikinig. And I hope that after this lesson, you will see Filipino culture not simply as a collection of old traditions, but as something living, changing, and continuously being shaped by generations of Filipinos. See you in our next lessons. And of course, these are the references used in preparing our lesson.